Inaugural pageantry aside, the partisan brawl in Washington will continue. Joining me to discuss the president's agenda for the next 4 years is a key Republican, Senator Roy Blunt, vice chair of the Republican Conference. And Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's good to be with you, Chris.
You just heard David Plouffe lay out the president's goals and approach for the next 4 years. How do you think his new combativeness is going to work?
Well, it seems like to me it's a lot like the old combativeness. You know, remember the president said during the campaign that you can't solve problems from inside Washington. There's only one guy that can actually lead in Washington in a way that can find a solution to big problems, and that's the president. And I was surprised this week to see him transition his campaign committee into an ongoing campaign-style effort to have an impact on the Washington debate, because it doesn't seem to me that the lesson of the first term would be that worked out very well. And you know, our problems are big, but they're not necessarily all that complicated. Everybody has a pretty good sense of what has to happen, and I'd like to see the president take advantage of this second term and divided government, a good time to solve big problems, to make things happen.
What about the White House argument, Senator, that you congressional Republicans have done everything you can to block his agenda?
I think the greater historic argument would be that he hasn't really done much to advance a specific agenda. He speaks in general terms. He likes the executive order approach a whole lot better than the legislative approach, and you really can't get all that far with executive orders. You've got to legislate, and you've got to legislate realistically. You've got to realize you don't control the entire Congress. It takes 3 entities to get a bill passed into law, and you've got to come up with something that a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate, a Republican House, and the White House can at the end of the day be for, or you just continue to kind of patch things together in ways that don't come up with real solutions.
Well, you talk about this transitioning his campaign machine to an advocacy group. What about the idea that of the outside game? He's going to reach out to voters, go over your heads, and put pressure on you.
I don't think there's any reason to believe from looking at the last 4 years that produces much of a result. It might produce a stalemate. It might get the president reelected, but he's not running for a third term. So we need to forget about the politics of this, I think, and look at what we can do to move the economy forward, look at what we can do to help create private sector jobs, look at what the federal government can do in the international sense to protect Americans at home and abroad. And I think that takes a cooperative leadership effort with the Congress. You know, the president's seen, at least I think a couple of times, and members of the House and Senate have seen this movie on Lincoln, the recent movie on Lincoln. The lesson of that movie, I think, was for when hard things get done, they get done because a president decided he was going to do what was necessary to get them done. And that means you've got to realistically look at the world you live in and the Washington you've been given by the American voters to work with.
Well, let's talk about some of the specific items that are going to be on your agenda. What do you think of the new House Republican plan to pass a short-term extension of the debt limit till April, and in the meantime insist that the Senate pass a budget or all of you lose your pay?
Well, I think all of us losing our pay if we don't pass a budget is the right thing to do. I'm for cutting spending, so just passing a budget isn't quite enough, but at least it's a step in the right direction. If you went to your credit counselor and said, I can't pay my bills, your credit counselor wouldn't say, well, that's just easy, we'll just extend your credit limit. Your credit counselor would say, what are you going to do to try to pay your bills in the future? And a budget is a big step toward doing that. One of the frustrations, I think, of the last 3 years has been no budget. For a year, not a single appropriations bill on the Senate floor, and now another tool comes along, the debt ceiling, and we say, well, we don't use that tool either. Apparently, we don't use any tool it takes to get our credit situation where it needs to be, but passing a budget would be a big moment, and I'd like to see us do that.
Well, let's talk about a couple of the tools that you could conceivably use. And that raises the question, when should Republicans make their stand on spending cuts? Some people are saying do it on March 1st when the automatic sequestration cuts, $100 billion for this next year, would kick in, and that you use that as an opportunity to demand big spending cuts. Others would say March 27th when you run out of money and the government would shut down. Is there a point there that you see when you think congressional Republicans, House and Senate, should say, all right, here's where we're going to demand serious spending cuts?
Well, I think all three of the points, the two you mentioned, and then later, either right now at the end of February, or if we kick it forward to the end of April, the debt ceiling itself, they all become moments to talk about spending. Sequestration we need to stop spending. We need to reduce spending. But it'd be better if we could figure out how to do that in a targeted way rather than across-the-board way. The worst way to make spending cuts is just say, well, we can't decide how to cut anything, so we're going to cut everything just a little bit. That's not the right thing to do, and hopefully we can find a better solution to sequestration in the Armed Services Committee and other places.
Let's talk about another item on the agenda. You have an A rating from the National Rifle Association, and this week you accused the president of wanting to try to take away our constitutional right when it comes to the right to bear arms. But Mr. Obama says that he is protecting other rights. Take a look.
That most fundamental set of rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, fundamental rights that were denied to college students at Virginia Tech, and high school students at Columbine, and elementary school students in Newtown. Those rights are at stake. We're responsible.
Question: can you support a measure that would limit the size of these high-capacity clips that hold 30 rounds or 100 rounds? Can you support a universal background check?
Let's see what they come up with in terms of specific proposals. Certainly at Newtown, what an incredible tragedy for every family involved, for that community. I've got a second-grade son. I've got grandchildren about that age. It was a terrible thing that those families, frankly, will never recover from. But let's talk about changes that would have done something about that. So far, I don't see that. Connecticut's one of the hardest places in the country to get a weapon, but this young man had weapons. But what else did this young man have? He had mental problems, and he had a history of problems with security officials, as all of the cases the president mentioned did have. But how do we share that information better? Let's do things that will make a difference here rather than take one more opportunity to go at an old agenda. We had bans on things for a decade that didn't seem to make any difference at all. But during that same decade, our willingness to share information about mental problems, our willingness to share information between security officials and police officials all declined.
But let me ask you about this question of sharing information. Polls indicate 90% of Americans don't agree that the sun's going to come up tomorrow. 90% of Americans agree with the idea of universal background checks. If you have this concern about who's buying the gun, and it wouldn't have helped because it was the mom who bought the gun in Newtown, but what's wrong with the idea of a screen to find out whether or not someone trying to buy a gun under any circumstances has a criminal record, has a mental health problem?
Well, I think we ought to talk about that. And the one thing I don't think you want to prevent is two guys who live next door from each other deciding they want to trade shotguns while they're talking about going hunting next week. But let's look at that and see. We have had proposals before that I voted for in the Congress that didn't get a majority, that would have tried to deal with some of the loopholes. I think gun owners are generally for that, but you've got to have a proposal that works, that doesn't create the problem of people not able to have the firearms that they'd like to have. The Second Amendment is there, and it's part of the Constitution, and you can't just decide you want to avoid the Constitution because you've come up with some reason that the Constitution no longer works. You have to come up with a real proposal, present it to the Congress, and have it done in a realistic way. The majority leader, the Democrat majority leader of the Senate, says that he doesn't believe there'll be gun legislation on the Senate floor. So this is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is a what can reasonably be done. And I think this is a moment when we can do something about mental health, about information sharing, maybe about background checks and other things as well, but it has to be a plan that could possibly work, or the president won't get it done.
Finally, and excuse me, but we got about 30 seconds left. I want to ask you one last quick question. You're a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Is the opposition to the nomination of Chuck Hagel as Secretary of Defense, is that opposition beginning to fade?
Well, we saw at least one senator last week make a statement, Senator Schumer, but I noticed not a lot of people rallied to join him and say, well, if it's good enough for Schumer, it's good enough for me. I think Chuck Hagel's got some questions to answer. One of those questions is going to be, why is it that positions you've held in the past about Iranian sanctions, about our support for Israel no longer appear to be your positions? I'm going to meet with him this week, and then the committee, I'm sure in those hearings, I'll have some questions there as well, and look forward to the chance to talk to him about what he would do. He's going to have a lot to say about our national defense for a long time as the Secretary of Defense at this time if he becomes the Secretary of Defense.
Senator Blunt, thank you. Thanks so much for coming in. Always a pleasure to talk to you,
Good to be
sir.
with you.